Welcome to the Nexus Unloaded podcast. This is Will Crozier.
And I'm Nikki Westcombe. We are the founders of Nexus Performance. Joining us on this wild ride is our heavyweight coaching team, ready to unleash their expertise to solve any problems in your journey to getting strong and jacked.
Through our real-world experience, we hope to break things down in a digestible, applicable, and entertaining way.
So pump up the volume and let's get into this.
Did we not turn the aircon on?
I turned it on, but I said we should have done it earlier.
Okay,
So
that's
this
right.
room was cooler.
It's not too bad. It's comfortable in here for 3 people. You count as 2.
I am.
You're half.
I am a furnace,
Just radiating.
bro.
He's also angry today, so that's not helping.
He's
My
heated.
blood pressure is high.
Heat. Going for 300 today.
Fuck, let's hope.
I'd like to see
If
it.
I can stand, I will go for 300.
That's in kilos, not pounds, everyone.
None of that American.
Damn it.
None of that American stuff here.
And without bumpers and straps.
Is that a shot at me?
No, just people in general.
Okay.
Gym bros mainly.
I do a bit of that.
They do the classic deadlift bar, load the fuck out of it with bumper plates, throw the straps on. Oh, I did 250 for 5 and bounced every rep. Yep, perfect.
Me and the boys were going to think about doing that after the deadlift comp, just to see if we could kind of outbeat each
Dude,
other.
Ego boost.
I'm all for it. I did it
Okay.
when I was learning hook grip.
Yep.
Because it made me I found it actually worked for building a better position, which has clearly paid off because so far I'm 20 kilos up in a year on my deadlift, which is like a pretty considerable amount.
How much kilos up in body weight are you?
This
Just out of
year,
curiosity.
net,
Yep.
like 5.
Okay.
7 at the moment. I'm like 119.
I'd
that
say more
confirmed,
so
coach?
like maybe 6 on average.
That's what I'm saying net.
Yeah.
Because I was about 112 at the start of the year.
And then
Average.
you drop, yeah.
So that's why I'm saying net gain.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Start of this
Math.
year. Gross. if we were going to say
Math.
gross this year, I've put on like 11 kilos.
Yeah.
If we take into consideration when I was sick,
Yeah,
but that doesn't count.
that doesn't count.
So heavy.
Heavy boy.
Yeah.
Thick.
I've been going to sleep at like 121 kilos.
He keeps
which
telling
is
me his night weight. I'm like,
disgusting.
don't do that.
And then in the morning, because I'm trying to see like what I weigh at night versus in the morning
Oh,
to see how my digestion's going and stuff.
yeah, yeah.
And like this week, I haven't done my check-in yet. Sorry, Jordan, but my
I know,
average
it's
is
due.
118.6.
It's due today, isn't it?
It's due
It's
today.
like 800 grams up.
Uh,
But that's eating the same cows. Like I've actually been consistently eating them this week,
I'll be the
like
judge.
5, 7.
You've probably been moving less if your calf's no good.
Oh, I've been moving way less.
Yeah.
Like way less movement, way less training. But it's just like my body's just fucked.
Well, you got 4. Is it 4 weeks till comp?
Yeah, 3.5 basically.
Yeah, well,
There's 4 weeks on Sunday, so it's come around pretty quick.
cool.
We've got like 1 to 2 more heavies.
Mission up to Brisbane for the team.
Mm.
It's going to be a big weekend.
Perhaps you'd like to shout it out. The dates.
The dates.
Where's the dates?
Spring Cup on the 11th of November up at Valhalla, Brisbane is a novice comp. I have 6 clients competing. 5 now. And then I will decide to make the decision to back it up and compete the next day myself, which would be really fun.
Crazy.
As well as having 2 other people, Hon's dog, Big Honza,
Big Hans.
and Tracy from Townsville. She's coming on down to get amongst it.
Is she?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
That's why she signed up. Because she was like, "Oh, I'm doing Battle in Valhalla." I was like, "Wait, me too. We can do it together. This is
That's
great."
cute.
Go team.
So I'm going to be coaching and handling the same day, the day after handling all day.
If you thought you were fucked now, let's wait till after that comp, after that weekend.
Oh no, I'm done. Yeah, I'm not coming to this gym for a whole week.
You'll be roasted.
Yeah, I'm going to cry.
Yeah.
Just sit at home and cry with Samuel.
Is that post comp strategy for recovery? Just sit at
That's
home and
actually
cry?
the best recovery strategy.
Is that what
Yeah.
you tell your clients?
No, I tell them, do what you can. If you want to train. If you don't do what I do. I'm the epitome of do as I say, not do as I do.
It's good coaching, I think.
Like a
That's
lot
the
of
only way to
coaches
coach.
like that.
Like if I listened to half the things I tell my clients, I'd probably be really like fucking doing all right.
As opposed to now.
I'm horrible.
Oh, you're doing all right.
Come
on, mate.
If you feel like it's above a 3 out of 10, don't push it. Not me. 10 out of 10. Oh, we'll just see what happens.
Roll the dice. See where you
That's
go.
why we have physical therapists.
Yep, to help. Making it work for their money for sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm keeping the pharmaceutical companies in business.
Shout out to all the
Shout out to Voltaren,
physical therapists that put up with clients like Josh.
the LV bowls, getting them down.
That's great. How's your training? Your training's been looking good.
Oh
Really
yeah,
good.
I fell bench this morning, but other than that, it's
Okay.
going real
It's
good.
just scrap that. Cut that. Cut
Nah,
that.
it's actually been
We don't
going
need
really, really good.
Who's
This prep-
coaching you again? That's
This guy.
why'd you fail bench, Josh? What happened there?
Don't blame me for any of that.
Nah.
pussies.
It's been a
It's
really
not my
good
fault she
prep.
can't bench.
Oh my god. Oh.
I just also want to point out that last prep, she touched 60 kilos like once, accidentally, because I misloaded it on purpose for her to get her out of her own head.
That's right.
And then for the next 4 weeks, failed it because she knew it was 60 kilos. And this prep, she's hit 60 kilos like at least once a week, every week.
Yeah, it's a given now. So
It's like a guaranteed easy weight, almost open a level.
maybe it will be.
Maybe it will be.
Says confidently.
It will be. But no, it's going well.
We just won't tell you at 60. You opened at 57.
Yeah, we're just going to make the... Hey, can you guys just fuck around with the loading things? I know that this is a really special, important competition and it's like official, but Jordan's a bit special.
But yeah,
Jordan's prep is doing really fucking well.
I'm happy with it.
Okay.
Squatted 130 on Sunday.
Yep.
Big
That was
PB.
good. Yep.
Big gal numbers.
Her comp best is 126.
122.
I thought you didn't.
I did 126 and then my comp best is 122.
Oh, fucking A. 7.5 kilos up. That's
Doing
sick.
well.
122.5.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. Just to clarify that.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if those increments were allowed. I didn't think they were.
No,
It's two increments.
not
of,
in USAPL, no.
not
Increments of 500 grams if you're breaking a record.
Yeah.
Okay. You didn't break no record.
Well,
Your own record.
I can next year. I will break it next year.
Yes.
Cool.
Mark my
Let's
words.
get after it.
Yep.
What about you?
My training?
What do you got in the pipeline?
Training has actually been, I've really been enjoying training the last little while, particularly after deadlift for dogs, and just trying to put on a little bit more size, probably the heaviest I've ever weighed. I checked the scale the other day, and granted, this was after breakfast and whatnot, but it read something in the realm of 75.5 or something, which is the heaviest that I've ever seen on the scale myself. Proud moment. I'll take it. I'll take what I
Yeah,
can.
take that win.
And just trying to be like adding in a little bit more conditioning and cardio and just looking after myself a little bit better, trying to just squeeze in more where I can, which is difficult because I feel like I live here at the gym already. Don't
There's
really
only
want to.
1 times Jordan difference between you and me.
What's that?
Our body weights.
1 times Jordan.
Yeah, nearly.
How does that work? What do you mean? How do you
Like
make that?
mathematically.
Adding me on to
Yeah.
Alex.
Right.
So if me and Alex
So if
addition,
you were
join
on her
forces-
shoulders
So
with
addition,
a trench coat.
just to clarify, addition, not multiplication.
Yeah, but 1 times Jordan.
You're making that really difficult for my
Nah,
brain.
Alex plus 1 times Jordan. Perfect.
I don't think you did well in math.
No, I didn't. I was in maths B. My teacher had to take me to the staff room every session because I couldn't concentrate in class. So they worked out that I'd just do better if I'm on my own, segregated.
Did you? Yeah, good.
Yeah, I went from like D's and C's to A's.
That's work. In math B.
Yeah, but that's like the normal person math.
Okay.
Because my school, we had like math B, which is like the normal math. And then we had math A, which was like the smart kids. And then somehow math C was like the really smart kids.
What?
Yeah, it made no sense.
Well,
No sense.
that math teacher failed English, obviously.
And then we had like the dumb math.
Found
But
it.
if you did that,
Was
you
that
did
D?
great. They didn't even name it that. It's like I
Dumb
did.
math.
It's like because same as English. Like we had English extension, and I was originally in English extension because I'm quite good with my English and like reading, writing, etc. But the teacher hated me, so I was like, "Fuck it, I'm going to drop it." And so I dropped to English communication.
What?
So it's like
How to talk.
the dumbasses.
Okay.
And you just I just sat there and played video games and then got A's because it was easy.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Welcome
Welcome to Townsville Education.
to Very nice.
Welcome to Townsville.
Townsville. Speaking of Townsville, we've got the novice comp up there the
What a
18th of
segue.
November.
Good leading.
You like that?
Oh, that was sick.
I had to change the subject because we were getting a little bit dark there
Carried
on
away.
Josh's past of education. But yeah, we don't even know when these podcasts are coming out, so we could have
Could have happened.
it could have already happened. It was great. A lot of people did well. They had a good time. But But Artie's putting together a good comp up there. I think we've got about 22 odd people signed up or something for
Beautiful.
that. So that'll be quite a good day. And then we've got the Nexus Games here on the Gold Coast, 9th of December. So that was kind of a bit of where my training was going to go to as well, because I've decided to throw myself in the ring. I think Mickey's jumped in as well. I'm trying to get some momentum of the boys doing it with me, something for a bit of a fun end-of-year event. So I have geared a little bit of my training towards that. Not a ton, because I don't want to change up too much of what I'm doing. I've hit quite a good stride, but my last session of the week, I'm just gearing a little bit more towards those events, doing a bit of throw stuff down at the park, doing a little bit of block pulls off the millions of 25 plates that I need to stack to get the correct height until we get the silver dollar deadlift equipment, hopefully arriving in the next week. Not that timelines are relevant here on the podcast, because this will probably come out in December anyway, and we've just missed all of this.
Imaginary.
Time is, it's not linear.
You know what else is on the 9th of December, though?
What's that?
Reece Maston.
Reece Maston at the Burley Town Hotel.
At the Burley Town Hotel.
Yep.
So we can have our after party at... Hey, couldn't go to Zach Bryan? Let's go to Reece Maston instead.
Yep.
Perfect.
So we are down at the
Maybe
Burley.
we can get him involved.
Maybe. Yep. He can throw some stuff around. He could challenge Honza to a drinking contest at the end of the night.
No one is winning that challenge. Honza will have finished his comp. And then this strongman event. That's it for him.
Yep.
It's on.
I reckon he will start drinking before the competition ends. That's my bet.
He won't stop drinking from the end of
The comp.
Battle in Valhalla.
Okay, so that's what, 3 weeks?
3 weeks
Yeah.
of...
Yeah. Good. Okay, that'll be interesting. We do have the keg overhead press event. We're going to look to fill those up probably with sand, not with beer, because we were tossing up whether or not it would be, an issue if someone is pressing it overhead and how many reps they get. But if they took some of the beer out of the keg and drank it to then make it easier. But of course, then you run out of the time. We've got a time limit, so it's a bit of a trade-off there.
You're putting a lot of thought into that.
Well, I reckon Honza can make it work. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
I reckon he'll find a way to leverage it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. If there's one thing Honza's good at, it's just excelling.
Drinking beer.
But just in most things.
Pulled 310 off the floor last night in the gym.
He just keeps it moving.
That was a great moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's really good. But we do have a topic that we're going to talk about today.
Mm-hmm.
Not just talking crap.
Jordan's not just here for fun.
Funsies. What is the topic?
Well, it's back-to-back competitions.
Yep.
So, I mean, I've never done a back-to-back competition. I think one's enough for me. So I don't know how these people can do more than what? What would you constitute back-to-back comp?
I was gonna
Like, how
say,
many?
let's define that.
there's kind of
define
two.
that.
There's two ways you can look at it. So we've got some people who are psychos and they'll almost do back-to-back comps in like a week or 2 weeks or whatever it might be.
Which is kind of common, though, if there's like a big event or something.
It truly depends, I guess, on the level you're at. So like for me, I guess in my first year competing, I did a comp in March, which was a qualifier for what was supposed to be nationals in September.
Mhm.
And then this was during COVID and nationals got cancelled.
Yep.
So they just did Strength Quest. So technically I did 2 comps in the year.
Yep.
Which I guess you could say is theoretically back to back because I did one comp to lead into the next. But there was like a 6-month gap or 7-month gap or something. So I wouldn't necessarily say that constitutes back to back. When we look at someone like Jace, who his plan was to do GPC Nats and then a week later, 2 weeks later, do Zero Pro.
Yeah.
But then when we look at that, he was doing a 3 lift for GPC Nats, but only going to do the bench only in Zero Pro. So
it's a bit different.
It's a little bit different.
With a 1 lift, yeah.
And then you've got people like Lily Riley up in Brizzy who does like 12 comps in a year and then throws herself into strongman events and
that's crazy.
Everything else possible. And I don't know how she does it, but just keeps going from comp to comp to comp.
Would you recommend it, doing back-to-back comps? Does it depend on circumstance? Like,
It truly depends on the person.
Yeah.
I think it depends on the level you're at. It depends on the person. It depends on their motivation. I had a particular client last year, and it was his first year of competing, and he just he went ham. Like we did a comp, we did the novice comp, a spring cup at Valhalla, and then we backed it up and did Queensland States for APL, and then we backed it up and did nationals. And I remember, and like he was hell motivated. He was like, oh, I want to do the Zero Pro as well. I want to go to Townsville and do the APL comp in Townsville. Like, let's plan it. Let's lock it all in. And then I remember he walked in and sat down on nationals on his day he was supposed to compete, and he's just like, "Coach, I'm done." It's like, I don't even want to be here.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, perfect."
It's
It's a good start to the day.
Yeah.
But it just goes to show that, like, it's taxing.
Mm.
Like, even being in comp prep myself at the moment, and George, you can probably attest to this as well, is like, we love competing and we love to do this sport for whatever reason. Everyone has their various reasons as to why they do it. Myself personally, I'm not competitive against the other people. I do it because it's something tangible that I can work towards, that I set a goal, set out, put the work in myself, and I can achieve it. Why most people do most things. But it's fucking hard.
Mm.
Like, it's hard. Like, my body is hurting at the moment.
Yeah.
So I couldn't do back-to-back comps because it just, for me, it just takes so much, not only just physically, but just out of my life.
Mm.
Like,
That's
most
us.
weekends at the moment, I'm so tired that I just sit on my couch because I physically just can't do anything. Like, it's just so mentally draining as well. You combine that with work, like, you know, you've got to keep the business moving, got to keep clients in check because they're all competing as well. So you got to be there for them, and you got to make sure they're looked after and they're getting still the most out of it. And they're like the main priority at the end of the day, because, you know, can't really compete if you got no money. So it's something that's like, you know, just takes a bit of the back burner, and then you got to try and prioritize it a little bit and segment your priorities, I guess, as things get closer. And it's just, it can take a lot out of it.
Mm.
And some people just keep going.
Yeah.
Mm. And like, say, so someone had maybe 3 or 4 comps spread across the year, 12-week preps. So that's like majority of your year in comp prep.
Yeah.
And then, like you were saying, it's a financial commitment. You also maybe have to say no to social things, depending on, like, throw in like weight classes, and maybe someone's, you know, trying to be ultra competitive. So throw that in there. Maybe they're saying no to social things. Then there's that financial commitment of maybe, like, I don't know, supplements or osteo appointments to kind of help with things like recovery. Like, it becomes more than just, I have to train.
Yes.
It kind of seeps into all these different facets of your life as well.
It is a big, big commitment. And that's what I think when people are doing these back-to-back comps. Like, I've got a couple of clients at the moment, again, who are planning to do Queensland States next year for APL, and then to back it up and essentially do APL Nats.
Yeah.
So that's about a 12-week gap, 13-week gap, I think, in between preps. And the one thing that I sort of say to most of them before they do that is, okay, and this is generally what I'll see most people do, is they'll have like the comp, like the big comp for the year, their number one priority. That's their goal. However, they might do a couple of different stepping stones along the way. I know some federations have a point where you need to qualify for states.
Yeah,
Then,
I think APU, it's like you do a local comp, then qualify.
Start again.
Qualify.
Let's qualify what you said.
Local comp, and then you've got the states, and then you've got Nats. So that's 3 you have to do.
Are they roughly the same timeline apart as well, or is the local comp a little bit more arbitrary till you get that done? But you obviously have a certain time frame at which that qualifier is.
yes, yeah.
active
So
for, right?
I believe, this is off the top of my head, but I believe APL Nationals, the first qualifiers can be from September.
Mm-hmm.
And for the drug-tested Nats, it has to be in a drug-tested event. And
Yep.
for the non-tested, it just doesn't matter. You can go and do it basically wherever.
Okay.
But yeah, fortunately with APL, you only have to compete at like a local comp, so you can go straight to states and not have done any other comp before that, and then you can go and qualify for nationals depending upon rankings and things like that, and the total and what you get. So it's like a fine line, because with that qualification process for, say, let's just say APL Nats, let's use that as the example, as the comp for the year for some of these guys, which is exactly what it is. They'll use that. That's what we're working towards.
That's the priority.
But they still need to do well enough to qualify for that without going like hell for leather and just burning themselves to the ground,
Yep.
knowing full well that if they were to burn themselves to the ground, we have to back it up in 13 weeks.
Yep. Like, comp prep is comp prep, right? It's going to be hard work. There's going to be a lot of effort to go in. But you could also say to the effect that if we've got the priority fixated a little bit further down the track, let's make sure that, especially when you're looking at training from a longer term plan, this is probably why, if you're going to do something like back-to-back comps, make sure you've got yourself a good coach and a good team around you to do so, especially maybe to help make you make some of these priority decisions, so you know when and how hard to push, and you know when to pull back and to leave some room, some gas in the tank for things that are more important, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And then on the flip of that, I guess, as well, is you have these people who literally just compete for the fun of it and the hell of it, and just because it's something they enjoy doing. And they'll just randomly be like, oh, there's a deadlift comp that's been announced in 2 weeks. I've just signed up to it. On top of like their other comps that they might be doing. And that's just something they can do because they just get so much enjoyment out of it. Maybe because they're not so much not taking it so seriously, but because they're just like, fuck it, whatever, I'm just going to do it. You know, it's less taxing on them, I guess. Like they're probably still happy to go to social events. They're probably still happy to just do their thing. And then you have the people who are super competitive who it's like, it does take away that social life, that home life. Like home life gets affected. Work life can be affected because it's just fatiguing. So
what are some of, like, we're talking then from a kind of training perspective and some considerations more broadly there. What about from the nutrition side of the equation? If we're talking about someone who is doing, let's use the APL example where you have to qualify for states. Sorry, you do the states and then you qualify for the nationals. We're talking roughly 12 weeks apart. What are some considerations from the nutrition standpoint when it comes to that?
And let's add in they have to make a weight class.
Yeah.
Cool.
So like I've had some clients, for instance, even doing like 3 or 4 comps in a year, and they want to be in a certain weight class, or maybe they've got nationals on the horizons and they've kind of competed in a few comps at a specific weight. So then we need to make sure that we're maintaining close to or around that weight for that main event, which, you know, theory, it sounds blah, whatever. But like for some people, what if they want to go travel as well? Like there are so many things that you kind of also need to consider, and maybe it means they need to be a little bit more like rigid in their approach to their nutrition, and maybe it means that they can't maybe enjoy as many social occasions as they want to. So that's kind of where it becomes a little bit more like, do you actually want to do this, and do you realize what this means? Because you're probably going to have to say no to a few things.
So there's a setting of kind of expectations, a conversation that you might have with someone, and just be like, are you aware of all these things?
Yeah. Or for instance, I had this exact same conversation with someone recently. We were looking at their calendar. Like we pull out like a timeline, and I say, all right, like this is the comps that what you want to do between now and like May or whatever next year. Like, what have you got on? And then we kind of talk through, is it realistic that we stay around here, like this weight? And if they make that decision, then I'm like, all right, then that's on our, like, we need to do that. So it can be, like, I've seen it in instances where it can get quite tough, like having to make weight. And then it just adds this extra stress during your like taper to kind of implement protocols to help them. And then say they've got another comp in like 12 weeks time. I'm kind of like, all right, we need to back that up again. Like,
yeah.
So it does add this extra kind of layer.
There's a lot of like, you know, the psychological and psychosocial component coming through here from both training, from both nutrition side. And it's like, yeah, you're even talking about like just the expenses and the costs of kind of doing this process. There's probably even a few trips to the old psychologist in there just to make sure that you're in good areas along that process.
Like mental stress is a form of stress, and that's going to impact your recovery as well.
Ignorance is bliss. Don't go to the therapist during comp prep. That's not medical advice.
Should we just do it afterwards?
Yeah.
Just do it all at once.
When you're done.
Yep. Go every day post-comp.
Can we just lay here and we'll just discuss it?
Yeah.
Nah, so I guess on that as well is it's something that you definitely do need to have a conversation with that individual about. And I know for myself, with the majority of my clients, like I would say that a majority of my clients are more the like beginner to intermediate. Like they're sort of, you know, they enjoy competing because it's fun, or they're just dabbling in it. They're just sussing out if they enjoy it and stuff like that. And so a lot of these guys and girls have other hobbies, other things they like to do. They like to go out to events. They like to socialize. They like to do these things. And I never, ever want to take things that people enjoy away from them, ever, because I find that if you start to sacrifice things too much, you lose the enjoyment of the one particular thing, and it becomes like a chore. So if they're competing because it's fun and they enjoy it and they don't give a fuck, brilliant. I think that person has less restriction on the external factors. If that person wants to go, if they don't care about making a weight class either, you know, let's say they're comfortably in the weight class or whatever that might be, they don't really care. They're just there. They just want to do it because it's fun. Like that person might go socialize a bit more. They might continue their other hobbies. But if you've got someone who like wants to be a little bit more serious, take things a little bit more seriously, may have a weight class, that's when like other things like external factors and hobbies and things like that may need to take a back seat. I generally put that timeline around the 8-week mark. I'll say to most of my clients, I'm like, cool, all right, go do your F45 classes or go do your rock climbing or whatever the other sports might be they really enjoy. But I'm like, from about 8 weeks out, we will really want to taper those back.
Yeah.
Because let's look at it. Okay, let's use rock climbing as an example. What's that? Majority, it's grip, back, pulling, etc. It's going to take away from your deadlift strength.
Yeah. Yeah.
Long term, it probably won't. It might actually help because you can have better grip. But for that 8 week into the prep,
Yeah.
it's one of those things you just need to try and control.
Well, I think it just kind of falls into a little bit of the priority conversation as well. And particularly if you're talking about someone who has a lot of other things that are priority to them, maybe it's like other sports, maybe it is socializing, maybe it's a really big part and aspect of their life and you don't want to take away from that. And, you know, they end up really hating the process, especially if they're maybe new and coming into it. I'm kind of thinking more for some of the gym members that are here that are doing the novice comps and things
Absolutely.
like that, you know, as much as they want to get a really good result and they want to push hard and they want to work hard, it's like, yeah, cool. Maybe don't sacrifice the rest of your life to do the novice comp of something that you are very casually into. You know, you're doing it to get something out of it. You don't want that to take away from all these other aspects of life. That's something that I've been very conscious of. Definitely no means a powerlifter. I find myself very casual strength training enthusiast, and doing those comps are a great way to, you know, test and put some time and intended effort, particularly into a block of training and a period of time where I am a little bit more focused and dialed in. It's probably somewhere around that 8 to 10 weeks out sort of thing. But for the rest of the time, it's like balance is key for me. And I already spend enough bloody time in this gym sometimes. You know what I mean? The last thing I need is 2.5 hour powerlifting sessions in the morning before a 9-hour shift, you know, getting home at the end of that and literally having nothing left and taking away from the other things that I enjoy in life.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess like I'd almost be a little bit on the opposite to that. Whereas myself personally, with relation to powerlifting, although I'm not highly competitive within the actual realm of powerlifting, I do have higher goals. Like I have some higher goals that I want to achieve within powerlifting before I wrap it up and call it a day, that I already know is on a set timeline of a few years. But myself personally, I also know that with that comes sacrifices. So it comes maybe sacrifices with having to be heavy, which I know long term I'm not going to want to be this weight. Like, fine for now, fine for a few years. Happy to do that. Happy to sacrifice social events. Not a big social person anyway, so that's fine for me. I'm pretty content to stay at home.
Take that one off.
Worry about that.
Yeah, that's sacrifice social. That's so for me, I'm quite content with that. Like I'm very content, and I think I said to George when I came back from Cairns after having a travel up there for my sister's wedding, and then we had Will and Mickey's wedding, and I said, okay, from this date, nothing. That's it. I'm not. There's no social thing that I'm planning to do. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not planning to go out and hang out with people. I'm not doing anything. Sure, I've gone and had one-off little gone and hung out with people, gone and done something on the whim or something like that. But for the most part, like I'm just trying to relax and just put all my focus into this because for me, the sacrifice is worth it.
Yeah.
So what if you had someone similar who was like wanting to be competitive and they wanted to do back to back to back? Because obviously in a prep, it's more so about like recovering and expressing a skill. So say if someone wanted to improve, what would you be like, maybe we need to dial it back and focus on not being constantly
From a programming perspective?
Yeah, or just like,
It's, again, it comes down to having a conversation. And I think anything within coaching comes down to having a conversation with that individual and understanding expectations. What do they want to get out of this? When they say they want to be competitive and they want to do back-to-back comps, what does that mean for them? Does that mean improving every comp?
Yeah.
Does that mean PBs? Does that mean taking world records? Does that mean just slightly doing better than their previous comp? Because those are all very different things.
Yeah.
Like if they're planning to be extremely competitive and want to take world records, that's like a bigger commitment. Like that's something you need to really take into consideration and be like, okay, that's when you look and be like, okay, cool. If we want to do this and we want to take these records or we want to win this podium or win this prize, there's a lot of cash being thrown around nowadays in comps, prioritizing which competition they want to go and try and win the most at. You'd look at it from the perspective of, okay, well, this is our bigger comp. I would still say that setting a goal of like what is the goal is important.
Yeah.
Because I think Alex and me have had this conversation before with relation to like, obviously we know that powerlifting and SBD work is a skill. And you can get better at that skill by doing that skill. But there comes a point in time just doing SBD also pigeonholes you. Why we include variants and we have off seasons and we like variations of exercises and we taper, peak, volume phases, all of this sort of different thing. It's not just constantly heavy singles week in, week out, week in, week out, because 99% of people cannot progress on that.
Yeah, well, it's also it's a consideration as well, like you were talking about earlier on. It's like, what is the level of the person? Like, if you have someone who's, they've got lots of muscle, they've really ticked off a lot of the hypertrophy kind of goals for a certain period of time, and maybe it is just strength that they need to work on, and you want to have a little bit more of those kind of skill phases, you know what I mean, and kind of working on that aspect. Maybe for someone who is less experienced and hasn't been doing it for as long, or had the time to maybe build some adequate tissue, they need to spend a little bit more time in a build phase and accumulate a little bit more of that to see the progression longer term for their SBD. And you're probably not doing that in comp rep, right?
That's kind of why I asked the question.
Yeah.
No. Well, that's literally the reason. That's literally the reason I took time off.
Right.
So my last competition was APL Nationals in last year.
Yep.
And I remember sitting down with George before that, and I was like, once this comp's done, I'm not competing again until a battle in Valhalla.
Yeah.
This is the next comp I'm
Over
going
a
to
year
do.
later.
Nearly 18 months later.
Yeah.
And that's what I said to Will as well. I was like, no, we need to grow. Like, I'd kind of been hovering around the 110 since I first started competing. I think my first comp I was 108, and my last comp I was 108. Vastly different body compositions.
Yeah.
Way stronger, like nearly 100 kilos up in total. On my total, sorry, not in body weight. That'd be a big boy. No. So, but I specifically said, like, no, I need the time to grow. Like, I understand that for me to progress and achieve the goals I want to achieve, I need to build more tissue. This is not so much of a skill aspect. This is a desire and a need to build more tissue.
I've got a question on that. If that's the case, we're talking a lot of the mental aspect of doing back-to-back comps. Can you explain a little bit of the mental approach that you took to then saying, I'm going to take a step away from competing for a little bit and spend time on building? Was there any kind of confliction there, or?
Definitely, because I'm only new to competing. So this is my third year. Yeah. So this will be my fourth comp ever. So I'd still say I'm like a new competitor for the most part. So for me, I definitely, and I'm not in my early 20s. I'm 27. I turned 27 this year, so I wouldn't say I'm old, but I'm definitely not young.
I thought he was 43.
I might look 43, but I'm just weathered. I've had a tough life.
He's seen a lot of shit.
I've been through a bit. No, so for me, I really had to weigh up, and I was like, okay. And I get caught up in it as well with social media and the world of social media, and you see all these really high-level competitors, and they're doing these like back-to-back comps all the time, and they're spending the time doing these things. And I'm like, fuck, these guys can like do it and keep progressing. They keep doing it. But then I also take a look at the fact that like some of these guys have been doing it for 10 plus years. Yep. And I've been doing it for 3. So I'm like, is me taking, and let's realistically look at it, it's probably only about 8, maybe 9 months of where I was like growing. Is me taking 8 to 9 months really going to affect long term? No. It's going to put me in a better position to achieve the things I do want to achieve, rather than just kind of spinning my wheels in the same spot I was for the last 2 years and just hoping something improves. So I think it's just one of those things that like understanding and looking long term, like we always say with everyone, right? We always say, think long term, look long term, understand that this is a long term game. It's not something that happens quickly. It's not something that happens overnight. So having that understanding and that long term mindset definitely helps.
Because like in the prep phase, nutrition's really there to kind of help with recovery and making sure we're like getting adequate supply of like calories and things like that. Whereas if we took time off and you went through like a building phase, that's when we can really kind of wrap nutrition around that as well, because like the training stimulus is there.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like where that question I asked you was coming from. It's kind of like, will you see like marginal improvement if someone was really competitive and they were just like, no, I just want to keep competing and not spending time.
It's hard to say. It's again, it's so individual because as we said, like we see some people who just continue to progress from comp to comp to comp. But then you also need to understand, as I said, that they've been doing it for
ever
so long.
Americans,
like they've spent
like 10 years old. Like
this is the thing, right? You go to high school in America, and I think they
have like
so they have primary
junior.
school and they have middle school, and then it goes to high. So I think when they start middle school, which is essentially the start of our high school, about 12 years old or something, they have powerlifting as a sport in most schools.
They have like collegiate,
they have
nationals
they have
shit.
collegiate sports, and one of the sports is powerlifting. Like they have wrestling, they have their NFL, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Powerlifting is one of those sports in quite a lot of schools.
Crazy.
So these kids are getting exposed to it from 12 years old.
Yeah.
In Australia, I'm pretty sure when I was growing up in high school, we were told we weren't allowed to enter the gym until we could do 100 push-ups and 100 sit-ups nonstop. And then we weren't allowed to do free weights until we were 16.
Yeah.
And they've got 12-year-olds doing SBD competitions. Like they're competing at 12.
Specificity. Let's go.
That's nuts. At high school, I got told off for like trying to shoot basketball hoops on the court because that's where people sat to eat.
Different culture, eh?
Yeah.
That's like we were kind of similar because we had I don't think we were allowed in the weight room of the gym. It was above the basketball court. It had like a lat pull down, a seated row, and a boxing speed bag or something like that. And I don't think it was till we were 15 that the PE teacher then invited us in, Mr. Sunjo. He was going through some rough times and let the boys come in with him and slam some weights and stuff. But the culture was very different around it.
We were allowed in, but we were allowed in the cardio section. And it was like we would do, because I was a part of the sports excellence program playing AFL.
Just a casual.
So I say that because the PE kids weren't allowed.
Okay.
So the normal sports kids weren't allowed, but the sports excellence kids were, but they were only allowed in one section, not the free weights. And we weren't allowed to go to the free weights until we were like 15, 16. It had to be supervised, and we had to do a certain amount of, I think it was 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, and then a certain amount of pull-ups, unbroken, before we were allowed to touch the free weights. Wow. Which I guess from a perspective of like making sure the person's ready is good.
100 push-ups in a row unbroken, though.
I don't think
Could you do that right now?
Fuck, no.
I couldn't do it. I get 50
I think
max.
I'd get 50.
Do you want to try after this?
No.
All right, let's do it.
Me and you will try.
I'm not trying. I've got to try and deadlift 300
Yeah,
today.
no, we'll try.
But that's what I mean, right? Like it just goes to show that like exposure over time helps.
For sure. Yeah.
Like long term.
Yeah. And like maybe there's also, there's nothing to be said that you can't do in an off season. You couldn't run something like a little mock peak or something like that, a little mock meet or some, manner
which I kind of did this year anyway.
Right.
So Wilbur and me, I went off from June. Basically, our goal was to eat, put on weight, put on tissue. So I did like a full hypertrophy spec all the way through until maybe January, February. And then Wilbur and me decided, okay, let's just run a very small 12-week mini peak. Let's just see what's been happening. Like, let's see if we've actually started to do something, build some tissue. And through that phase, PB squat, bench, and dead. All three.
Probably a good sign that things are working well.
Exactly.
Right?
Only a small amount. I think I put 10 kilos on my deadlift. I put 15 kilos on my sleeve squat. And 5 or 10 kilos on my bench, something like that. But it was enough to be like, okay, cool. What we're doing is working. And then we went back to a bit more of a hypertrophy focus. And that's when George and me really kicked off like my bulk. And just went hard on the food. And
it's an interesting point as well, because it's like because quite often, and we get this coming up a lot in the gym and questions from the guys that they're like, I don't feel like I'm progressing. And it's just because they haven't measured that 1 RM strength. They haven't done any kind of maybe competition or expression of that. It doesn't mean that you're not getting stronger. And maybe there is an element of you not getting stronger and maybe even getting quote unquote a little bit weaker during that period. But it is so that you can surpass the point at which you were getting stuck at before by going and attacking some of the weaknesses and things that you need to work on in order to progress the main goal, which is load on the bar for SBD, right?
Yeah, and I have this conversation with people all the time. I had this conversation with a client 2 days ago because they were saying they're like heavily in their off season. And they're like, oh, I feel weak in comparison to what my other friends are lifting at the moment. I'm like, good. Like, we're doing such a wildly off-plan variation to a SBD lift. Like, this is not the time when you're going to be breaking 1 RM PBs. This is the time when we're putting the effort in and putting the work in and putting the time towards progressing them later. So I try and make people focus on smaller goals.
Yeah.
They might have SSB. I'm like, all right, cool. Well, your best SSB at this point now, 200 kilos. Your best squat's 270, low bar, full comp prep, everything. Sweet. So let's see what we can do about progressing this SSB. All right. By the end, let's just say after 12 weeks, that person takes their SSB for 3 reps or 5 reps from 200 to 220. Well, naturally, you've had to have acquired more tissue, better skill, and a lot of different other variables and things like that that are going to contribute to long term, so that when it's time to peak the squat again, you'll have confidence in the fact that you've progressed. Not so much because you've been doing low bar and you know that's progressed, but because your SSB has progressed, your leg press has progressed, your pendulum, your hack squats, your single leg variations have progressed.
Yep.
If all of these things are progressing, it's a pretty almost guaranteed deal that like, hey, we've made progression.
Yeah.
To when the time comes to express that skill again.
Yeah. And I guess that just comes back into some of that conversation as well of setting that expectation, you know, that, hey, this is the work to kind of get you there. It may not feel like it right in the moment, but, you know, and you can use examples. You know, it's been so many times that you've had clients that have done that and then gone through and got a better result. But I think just making sure that, you know, clients understand that and people know the process and they can be confident in that process as well, because it's a big part of it as well, right? That you want that person to be, you want their head in the game.
Yes.
You don't want them thinking that I'm wasting time here, you know what I mean? Because then motivation drops off and
They
then
don't apply themselves. There's no intent.
follow their diet, and
Yeah.
you know, and then everything starts to fall apart. But if you can keep that person a little bit more level-headed, and they can see that path as well, I think that's important. That if you can lay it out for them enough that, you know, they have confidence in that process, you're probably going to get the result that you're looking for.
I actually had this conversation with a client yesterday. So she's come off the back of doing 3 comps usually in a year. And I think next year she's looking at doing 2 instead, because she's identified that, all right, it's a bit much. But her hesitancy is where, like, she's like, I don't feel like a powerlifter if I'm not training for a comp. So it's more of like a mindset. It's like a...
If they're not doing direct SBD
if she's
work.
not doing like the direct stuff, she doesn't feel like a powerlifter. And she then doesn't feel like, oh, I don't want to be in the gym. Like, so that was something we spoke about yesterday. I was like, oh, because then we talked about like mini goals and like understanding that all these other things will then funnel into that time when she does do prep. Like,
it's funny how much mindset comes into things like that, because then you got Joe Blow who hits a commercial gym once a week and benches and calls himself a powerlifter.
Seen a few of those.
You know what I mean? Like, there's such a different contrast between people and like their
bio,
thoughts.
powerlifter.
Yeah, exactly. And they're like, oh, so
Bench 90.
do you compete? Oh, no. I just bench at the gym. Oh, okay. Yeah, cool. Yeah, sweet, man.
Yeah.
Fuck, if you're doing something at the gym, sick. I'm stoked for you. That's awesome.
Absolutely.
If you want to call yourself a powerlifter, have at it. I don't
Sure.
think you should gatekeep the term. I don't really care if people are in the gym progressing towards something. That's great.
Doesn't matter.
It does not matter, but the fact that your client thinks that she's not a powerlifter when she's not doing that specific
when she
work,
doesn't have her knee sleeves on or like her belt or
I think comes from a misconception. We've spoken about this heavily on the podcast. We've spoken about this heavily on our content. I think we speak about it with almost every client member we have, is that like, it's that expectation of like, okay, you want to get better at SBD. I totally understand. And there might be merit sometimes to spend a lot of time just doing the skill, developing the skill, getting better at walking your squats out for a heavy low bar. You know, walking a heavy 1RM out versus walking it out for a set of 8 is vastly different. The way in which you prepare for that set, the way in which you attack that set is very different. It shouldn't be technically, but it is. It's just naturally how it happens. It's no different for bench if you're doing like a different variation. It's no different for deadlift if you're doing a different variation. Like, it's very hard to change your mindset from a heavy 1RM to I'm doing sets of 5, pause with straps and like all of this other stuff.
What was your advice to this person?
This is hard. I encourage her, to talk to her coach about it as well. So he could be aware, maybe try add some fun stuff into her program to then kind of help her with motivation, getting in the gym. And then I kind of spoke from more of just like a personal anecdotal, like I found what helped me, because I like taking long off seasons, but sometimes without a comp in sight, you're like, okay, like, but I said, setting mini goals. Like, I have a dip goal. And I've been working on my dips, like, because I'm like, oh, but if I like get bigger triceps, my bench is gonna get even better. So like, that's kind of like.
And what's progressed? Your mid grip bench.
Yeah, my mid grip bench has
now comp bench for this.
Pendulum. So I hurt my hip at the start of the year, and we've been squatting like once a week, and then I've been smashing like
box squatting.
I box squatted for like 3 or 4 months. Yeah. So then I was like, all right, I'll set like mini goals with the belt squat and the pendulum. And then once I got back into like squatting, I was like, oh my God, I hit like 120 for a triple, I remember. And I was like, that was fucking easy. Like, where did that come from? So it does, like, I was kind of like, setting the mini goals has helped.
It honestly, it can be really hard to see it. Like, it can be hard, even as a person who may, you know, some of these people, their life doesn't revolve around it. So they might have normal full-time jobs, kids, whatever. Like, their life isn't powerlifting. So it could be really hard for those people to see that, like, okay, this is going to pay off in the long term. This is going to be beneficial. And that's where it comes down to like coaching. I think we keep coming back to the same point, is like coaching, setting expectations, having the conversation with the client, letting them understand and know that like, okay, I understand right now, and knowing that they're being heard too, because if you just turn around and pass them off, you're like, just shut up, follow the plan. Sometimes there is merit for that, don't get me wrong. Sometimes you need to be a little bit like, mate,
Pull your head in.
follow it.
Yeah.
Other times you need to be a little bit more empathetic and be like, okay, cool. You know what? I understand where you're coming from. I really do. Like, I get it.
Especially if you've been there. Yeah.
I remember, I think I fucking put a story up when I was first starting prep, because I tore my quad at 20 weeks out? I think it was around 20 weeks out I tore my quad. And I remember starting my prep, and I'm almost certain I put a story up saying, not my best starting point for squats. Within 4 weeks, I'd surpassed every single volume PB on my squats I've ever done. 4 weeks. Like, that was it. To understand that, like, the work that's been put in the background has actually paid off.
Yeah.
But I really struggled to see that at that point, because my mindset was on what was happening right there and then. I was like, this is shit. So I get it for like clients and things like that.
Yeah.
I've been there a heap of times with training as well, where it's like you feel like what you're doing is just like, I should be here, or I should be there, or the numbers that I was hitting that. But then, like, you string together a couple of weeks of good training and you're like, oh shit, I'm actually in decent areas. I didn't even.
The should.
Yeah, I should be there.
The worst thing
you can do for your own training.
It's honestly the worst.
Yeah.
The worst thought process to have is, I should be here. I should be doing this.
Yeah.
That person is doing this, so I should be doing this too.
Yeah.
That person's squatting 3 times a week, benching 4 times a week, deadlifting twice. I should be doing that. Yeah. That person works 15 hours a week as an online coach selling booty programs, relaxing at the beach 90% of the day.
Yeah.
You work a full-time job, have a kid at home. Your lives aren't the same.
Yeah.
Like, they're so different.
So therefore, why would your training be the same?
Yeah, why would your training be the
results
same? You can't recover the same. You like, it's, and that's not to say that I don't try.
Sure.
Have a crack at it.
Yep.
But understand, like, there's very different things, and that's why we look at all different variables and different stresses and all of that sort of stuff.
A lot of variables to consider with the human animal, for sure. Yeah.
Bloody
Do
mammals.
we have any other thoughts to kind of wrap that up, or have we done pretty well to cover most of the territory here?
I think we've gone away from back-to-back comps a little bit and added just a whole bunch of different things in there, but I think it's all contributed to it. It's all very relevant, because I think it all contributes to the understanding. And I guess genuinely, like, the one message that's come out of today massively is communication, conversation, expectations,
chat with your coach,
setting expectations with the person. From a coaching perspective, understanding what that person wants as well.
Yeah.
And then understanding that not every comp has to be like sending it. You can be strategic with how you plan them out.
Yeah.
Yeah. I reckon that's a great point to leave it.
Awesome. Go team.
Nice work, team.
Perfecto.
Back her up.
Yay.
Back her up.
Thank you for listening to the Nexus Unloaded podcast. Be sure to jump on our website to find details on everything mentioned in the podcast today, plus information on our coaching, mentoring, and gyms based in the Gold Coast and Townsville. Make sure you follow us on our Instagram for any updates on what we are currently doing, and we'll see you all in the next episode.